beautiful London day.
The Australian Prime Minister in Downing Street just 3 months ago to seal, with a bump of the elbow,
which one of you is going to get the better
the
deal?
UK's first big trade deal done from scratch with Australia. Tim Tams, penguins, plenty of banter. They agreed the principles of the deal and what seemed to be a shared approach on the environment.
We talked about climate change and the shared ambition we have to have a fantastic COP26 summit in November to reduce global emissions.
But Sky News can reveal that weeks later, the Trade Secretary and the Business Secretary gave in to a new Australian demand. A leaked email seen by Sky said that the Business Secretary has agreed that in order to get the Australia FTA, Free Trade Agreement, over the line, the DIT, Department for International Trade, can drop both of the climate asks, including a reference to the Paris Agreement temperature goals. One of the Conservatives' most senior environmentalists, who chairs the committee advising government on climate, was scathing.
If we're not prepared to hang our hat on the Paris Agreement, to which we have put our solemn promise and which we have put by law into action in this country, when we're dealing with Australia, which is one of the recalcitrant nations, one of the countries that's not doing what it ought to do, then really we're not taking the lead at all. And to do this at a time before COP26 is very serious.
The government insists that the forthcoming Australia trade deal will uphold the Paris Climate Change Agreement. But Australia made these demands for a reason, and it's significant that ministers went along with them in secret. Climate change is all about upholding commitments once the spotlight has moved on, rather than doing anything to help sceptical nations get out of their obligations.
The Australian scepticism comes despite wildfires that have ripped across the country in recent years. But a senior Australian politician made clear why dropping temperature targets was their red line.
I welcome the fact that the UK is recognising that we are no longer a colony of the United Kingdom. The UK does not get to decide what policies are put in place here in Australia. Keep in mind the Paris Agreement's non-binding. It's not law. It did not go through the US Senate. It was not considered a treaty. It's an aspirational agreement that a bunch of countries signed up to.
Green groups saw this coming in the UK-Australia trade deal, pleading in a letter to the Prime Minister earlier this year, saying it is not worth the rush to do a deal if the outcome causes significant damage to the planet. Last month, the Prime Minister responded, saying that the deal commits both parties to collaborate on climate and environmental issues. He said, "We are clear more trade will not come at the expense of the environment." That promise has been broken, says the head of Greenpeace.
The reason why he wrote this letter was because he was basically saying trade and the environment cannot be separated. He said this is not going to be a race to the bottom. What this email shows is that that is just a barefaced lie, that actually what they're doing is the opposite. This is a race to the bottom, and it is a disaster. If the government is giving in on these environmental regulations, it is truly shocking, and it is truly seismic in terms of the impact that that will have.
Ministers still want a thumbs up on the deal within weeks. Australia is prepared to wait if needs be. That means compromises some might not like.